The room that doesn't exist. An unexpected inheritance. A young couple with a young daughter named Mary received unexpected news. They had inherited an old building on the edge of town. It was a majestic but abandoned structure that immediately captured their imagination. The neighborhood was quiet and peaceful, and the neighbors were nice and happy. The family decided it was the perfect place for a new chapter in their lives. They set to work with enthusiasm, removing old wallpaper, replacing old floors, and fixing the leaking roof. Mary, inquisitive and cheerful, ran around the rooms cheerfully, helping her parents paint the walls with her small brushes. Each room was filled with warmth and light, restoring the building to its former grandeur. The parents dreamed of a future in this house, imagining Mary growing up within these walls. Family comfort gradually filled every corner of the building, which began to seem alive, as if it was happy to see them. Everything seemed to be going as well as possible. This opportunity to start a new life seemed like a real gift of fate. Everything was going well until one cold night everything changed. The door to the unknown. In the middle of the night, they woke up to a strange sound. Going downstairs to the first floor, they saw the unimaginable. An old, dark wooden door appeared on the wall of the living room. At first, they thought it was a hallucination and that it was just their imagination. However, when they touched the door and examined it closely, they realized that it was quite real. It did not look like a part of their home at all. It was as if the door was from another dimension of reality. Even being near them was eerie. The door was covered with carved patterns that looked like tangled vines, and a light, cold fog was creeping out from under it. Filled with terror, they rushed to the phone to call the police. But while the parents were trying to explain the strange incident to the operator, they noticed out of the corner of their eye that their little daughter Mary, as if mesmerized, was approaching the door, and it opened. Mary disappears inside, and the door slowly closes with a loud creak. Subconsciously, the parents realized that if the door closed, they would never see their child again. Gathering their courage, they went inside at the last moment. Behind the door was a narrow tunnel with gray painted walls. Old pipelines stretched across the floor, dripping water, creating an ominous echo. There was a heavy smell of dampness and something medical in the air, like an antiseptic. The tunnel led them further until they came to a huge, gloomy building, a forgotten hospital. The windows were broken, and the metal door at the entrance hung on one hinge. The name could be seen in faint letters on the facade, but most of the letters had been erased by time. The horror of a forgotten hospital. Inside, the hospital looked even more eerie. All the rooms were abandoned. Operating tables covered with a layer of dust, rusty instruments scattered on the floor, old catalogs with documents lying everywhere. In some places, dark stains like dried blood could be seen on the walls. The silence was broken only by the creaking of the floor under their feet and the distant echoes of footsteps. They realized that it could be their daughter, but every sound made them shudder. Now they had to not only fight the horror, but also to find their child in this gloomy maze. The parents, overcoming their fear, cautiously enter the ward. The faint moonlight breaks through the cracks in the closed blinds, illuminating the room. All the furniture is covered with dust, and the air has a musty smell typical of places abandoned decades ago. The beds, covered with torn sheets, are arranged in a chaotic manner, and old medical instruments are lying on the floor. In the center of the room, they see their daughter Mary. She is standing with her back to them, holding her favorite toy, a teddy bear. Her hand moves slowly, as if she is holding the toy out to someone invisible. But suddenly, in front of their eyes, the toy breaks free from her hands and, like a bird, smoothly flies to the next bed, where it lands silently. The parents freeze. Their hearts are pounding so hard that they think they are about to jump out of their chests. My father is the first to find the strength to speak.
Who are you talking to, Mary?
His voice trembles, but he sounds insistent. The girl slowly turns to them. Her face looks completely calm, even a little thoughtful, as if she had just talked to an old friend.
My friend Lucy.
She answers quietly. Lucy has lived here for a long time. She says she was one of the first to come here and misses her parents very much. She is always waiting for one of them to come here. She also told me to beware of the old witch. The parents look at each other, their faces white with fear. My mother, trying to remain calm, asks,
Where is she? What does she look like?
The girl points to the corner of the room, but there is only darkness. The father steps forward to turn on the flashlight on his phone, and its beam slides across the walls. What they see makes their hearts sink. Words are written on the walls in black marker. I will take you all. You are mine. The inscriptions look as if they were made in anger. The letters are uneven, smeared in places. There are many of them and they repeat like an echo. In some places, the walls look scratched, as if someone tried to scratch the words with their fingernails. My father abruptly steps back, bumping a chair that falls with a loud crash. At that moment, the temperature in the room seems to drop. Barely audible children's laughter bursts from the darkness of the corner where their daughter was pointing. The mother picks up her daughter Mary, her fingers trembling. The father, gathering his strength, shouts,
We're getting out of here now.
But when they turn to the door, they notice that it is locked. Footsteps begin to come from the dark corridor. A witch and her mirror. The ward door slowly opens. The figure of an elderly woman appears in the empty doorway. She is dressed in a long black cloak, the hood almost completely hiding her face. Her figure is slim and tall, her movements slow but confident. She stops, assessing them with a look from under the hood, and her presence is almost physical, like a weight in the air.
What are you doing here?
Her voice is deep, quiet, and slow, but every word seems to echo in their minds. The parents are stunned. The mother, holding her daughter in her arms, tries to answer, but her voice trembles.
We were looking for our daughter. She came in here.
The woman tilts her head slightly to the side, as if she is thinking about their words. Then she asks slowly,
Have you seen my daughter?
This question gives them a strange feeling. Her voice becomes a little sharper and her tone almost accusatory. The woman takes a step forward, and the light from her father's phone illuminates her face for a moment. Wrinkles cover it, her eyes are deeply sunken, and a faint but disturbing hint of a smile is on her lips. The mother looks at her daughter, who suddenly begins to fuss in her arms, as if trying to escape. And then Mary's sharp cry rings out in the silence.
No, don't give me to her. She wants to take me away.
These words pierce the parents' hearts. The mother holds Mary tightly to her, and the father instinctively retreats, trying to protect his family with his body. The witch stops. Her face is distorted with anger, but she still tries to remain calm.
Who told you that I'm not your mother?
She whispers, but her voice sounds ominous.
You came here because you were called. You will be mine.
Mary begins to cry, clutching her mother with her hands. Now the air in the room seems to have become thicker and colder, and the writing on the walls begins to fade and move, creating bizarre patterns.
We have to go.
My father decides, his voice filled with despair. He takes a step forward to go around the woman, but she holds out her hand as if trying to stop them.
She belongs to me.
The old witch hisses.
You have come to a place you were not supposed to find, and now you won't be able to leave either.
Her last words are lost in a strange sound, like a moan that echoes through the corridor. And from the darkness behind the door comes the crying of many children, which pierces the thick darkness of the house. The sounds seem to come from all the walls at the same time, filling the space with invisible but tangible suffering. A woman, looking like an ominous shadow, suddenly takes out a mirror from under her cloak. It looks old, in a heavy frame covered with eerie carvings of intertwined faces that seem to be watching every movement in the room. The glass itself reflects many children's faces. Their eyes are full of fear. Their lips move in a silent scream, and their gazes plead for help.
Look here, Mary.
The woman says in a voice that sounds like a snake hissing. Her hand, holding a mirror, slowly reaches out to the girl. But the girl suddenly squeezes her mother's hand and buries her face in her shoulder. Her voice trembles, but she whispers confidently,
Lucy told me not to look, no way.
These were the words of her new invisible friend, whom the girl met in this place. And now this friend is helping again. The room is filled with a strange echo, like voices coming from the walls. They repeat the same thing.
Mirror! Take away the mirror, break it.
At first, my father stands motionless, frozen with fear at the words that sound as if they came from nothingness. But then he suddenly comes to his senses. Realizing that this may be the only chance to save his daughter, he rushes forward, straight to the witch.
Give me the mirror.
He shouts, his voice filled with anger and despair. The witch laughs predatory, as if she was expecting an attack. She steps back, pointing the mirror at him, and hisses,
Come closer if you dare. This mirror has taken more than you can imagine.
You and your daughter will be next. The father does not stop. But Lucy's words don't look in the mirror echo in his head. He closes his eyes, but moves forward. Each step becomes harder, as if the air is thickening, squeezing his body. But his love for his daughter is stronger than any fear and darkness. He reaches the witch and grabs the frame of the mirror, trying to wrest it from her hands. The witch resists, and a strange light begins to emanate from the mirror, burning his body. Children's voices come out of the glass, crying and begging for help. The struggle between the father and the witch fills the room with chaos. The mother desperately tries to cover her daughter's eyes so that she does not see the mirror. The tension grows until suddenly the father manages to wrestle the mirror from the witch's grasp.
No!
She screams in a voice filled with horror and rage.
You don't know what you're doing.
But he is already swinging, throwing the mirror to the floor with all his might. It shatters into thousands of pieces, and at that moment the room is enveloped in a blinding flash of light. The voices of the children in the mirror grow louder, but now they sound like gratitude before they disappear into thin air. The witch falls to the floor, her cloak enveloping her figure, which begins to melt into the darkness, leaving only a barely audible whisper.
You will meet me again.
Returning home, in an instant, the door to the room opened, and the parents and Mary, grabbing each other's hands, ran down the dark corridor. The sound of their footsteps echoed off the walls of the corridor in the void, like heartbeats. Finally, they found themselves in their home, full of anxiety, fear, and joy. But as soon as they crossed the threshold, something changed. They looked around and saw that the door they had just entered through had disappeared. It was as if it had never existed, just a smooth wall that looked at them with its cold calmness. It seemed that this way back had been erased forever, and the house pulled them back into its family peace. After the ominous mirror, in which the children's souls were imprisoned, was broken, amazing events began to happen in the town. Over the following nights, children who had previously disappeared under mysterious circumstances began to return to their homes. Parents who had already lost hope of their children's return would wake up in the middle of the night to unusual sounds. At first it was quiet whispers, then familiar voices calling their names. The hearts of the adults were filled with anxiety and hope at the same time. They hurried to the children's rooms, not believing their own ears. Opening the door, the parents saw an incredible scene. Their missing children were sleeping peacefully in their beds, as if they had never left home. The soft light of the night lights emphasized the calmness on their faces. But there was something strange. The children's lips moved slightly, repeating the same phrase, "The room that doesn't exist." Parents, overcome with emotion, tried to wake their children, but they remained in a deep sleep, continuing to whisper mysterious words. Some adults tried to remember if they had ever heard of such a room before, while others searched for explanations in books or on the internet, but to no avail. The phrase, "the room that doesn't exist," had no logical explanation, leaving everyone in a state of confusion and anxiety. Subsequently, the children would wake up without remembering anything about their disappearance or return. The only thing that remained in their memory was the feeling of the presence of someone or something in the room that was not there. The psychologists to whom the parents turned could not find a rational explanation for this phenomenon, suggesting that it could be a collective subconscious memory or a consequence of a shared trauma. The mystery of the missing room remained unsolved. But the most important thing was that the children returned home and the families were together again. However, deep down, each parent felt that this story was not yet complete, and that the shadow of the mysterious room could reappear in their lives.